Hello there everyone, it's Nina. I'm so glad you're joining me today. I have a very fun project to share with you. I wanted to create something with this beautiful stamp set from Gina K Designs called Flowers for You. And I also wanted to play around with the new Distress Ink Color Villainous Potion from Tim Holtz. So I decided to do some watercolor resist with the stamp set, and then I paired up some hot foil plates from Simon Says Stamp with this project to create a beautiful and elegant card that has not only a lot of shimmer, but some very beautiful foiled accents to go with it. So here's the stamp set. This is the Flowers for You set from Gina K Designs, and I have picked out a variety of distress inks to watercolor with. So I've got Evergreen Bough, Shaded Lilac, Bundled Sage, Pine Needles, the new Villainous Potion, and Ice Spruce. I'm going to start by stamping this gorgeous floral onto some watercolor paper. This is Canson watercolor paper. And the reason I chose this one is because it's a little bit smoother than other watercolor papers. I'm taking a Simon Says Stamp blending brush and picking up some powder from my powder tool to gently brush that onto the surface of the watercolor paper, and then I'll start stamping with embossing ink. So this is Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink, and I'm going to ink up my stamp really well to make sure I get all those little details of this very intricate stamp. I'll press that down onto my watercolor paper, and right now you can't see it, but we do have a stamped image there, and I'll start sprinkling white embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp over top of that ink. And because we used embossing ink, it's sticky, so it's picking up that powder really nicely so that we can start embossing with our heat tool. So I melted the embossing powder with my heat tool, and that's going to give me a beautiful raised image of that Flowers for You stamp. I've pulled out a hardboard here. This is something I had in my stash from Art Impressions, and I'm going to use this as a surface to smush my inks. You don't have to use this exact tool. You just need something that's going to allow you to put some ink down onto a surface and then pick it up. I have a dish of water here and one of our Simon Says Stamp Positively Everything tools inside of that bowl, and that's going to help me clean my brush as I watercolor. I really like doing this because the little nooks and crannies, the little nubby sections of the Positively Everything tool, or the PET, that really cleans between your bristles of your brush really well. So as I'm watercoloring and blending out these beautiful inks, I'm carefully going through and cleaning my brush as I watercolor to get the color off before I transition to either the same shade and then going for a clean round of it, or moving on to a completely different color. So I'm coloring with the Distress inks, and because they are water-based, they are going to react really well with the blending, and so we get this really gorgeous watercolor effect with these inks. You'll also notice that because we did the embossing for this stamped image, all of the outlines are resisting that ink. So we're getting these beautiful white lines that are showing the details of the flowers, and it's also helping the watercolor to stay in the areas that I'm placing it. So if you're not someone that likes to color a lot and coloring a detailed image like this maybe scares you a bit, this is a great way to start watercoloring because those outlines will help you stay inside the lines while you're coloring. So an emboss resist is a great way to get your feet wet with coloring. So I'm going to continue watercoloring this image. You'll notice in some places I did mix colors a bit, like I mixed Villainous Potion and Shaded Lilac a little to create an in-between purple, and I did the same thing with Bundled Sage and Ice Spruce to get a darker version of Bundled Sage. So play around with the inks, create your own color combinations, and just have fun with it. So I created this really beautiful watercolored image. My cat Oscar is sitting here helping me. I fussy cut the image out, and then I'm using glossy accents to go over top of different sections of the image so that way I can start sprinkling on some glitter. So this is a totally optional step, but it is really worth it. I love adding the glitter over top of an image like this because the glossy accents will dry clear, and then that will allow the color underneath to show through the glitter, and it just creates a gorgeous look. So this is Simon Says Stamp Unicorn Dust Glitter. I'll let this dry while I move on to the next step. That is going to be some foiling. So I have two hot foil plates from Simon Says Stamp, the Mini SLIMLINE Falling Dots and the Love. So I'm going to foil both of these inside of my Gemini foil press. If you don't have this machine, any foil machine that you have will work with these plates. So this plate is going to heat up inside of my machine while I work on cutting up some foil. For the foil, I've chosen some silver from Crafter's Companion's Gemini collection. So I'm just going to trim this down to be about the same size as my plate. And I'm going to attach this foil onto my cardstock because this is a fairly large plate and quite a bit of foil, and I don't want anything to shift as I run this through my die cut machine. So I'm going to lay the paper on top of my foil. I put a piece of masking tape on top of the foil, and then I'll fold it over to create a hinge that's going to attach onto my card. So this is just holding the foil in place, and it'll help keep things from moving around as I run this through my die cut machine. So here you can see the paper underneath, the foil on top, and we're going to lay this right on top of our plate. So my plate has been heating up inside of my machine here, and I'm just going to go ahead and place this paper and foil face down. So the pretty side of the foil is facing the plate. This is going to lay right on top of there. And then I will place my shim on top of that entire stack. So if you have a different foiling machine, your sandwich might be slightly different. However, these plates work with any foil machine. So here I have the plate run through my die cut machine, and you can see it's already created an impression on my paper. Removing that foil, and you will see how gorgeous this foil design is. Now I did have a little bit of over foil here on the left. We'll clean that up and I'll show you a trick for that. But before we go any further, I do want to foil my sentiment. So this is the Love hot foil plate. We're going to let this one heat up in our machine just like we did for the previous plate. I'm going to use that same foil and some white cardstock. I'll lay these right on top of that plate. This is a little smaller, so I didn't worry about taping them together. I'll undock my machine and again run this through my Gemini Junior. Once I've removed that from the die cut machine, I have this gorgeous sentiment. I just love the effect of foil. It's so pretty. Okay, so to clean up that overfoil, I used a sand eraser. I just took that eraser and carefully rubbed it over that overfoil spot, and that's going to take away all of that extra foil. Now this was also in the same space as where my flower was going to end up being, so it really honestly wasn't necessary, but I wanted to show you in case it happens on a spot for you where you don't actually want to have any foil. So if you have our Simon Says Stamp Word and Shadow Love die, those coordinate perfectly with this Love hot foil plate. So I used the outline die to die cut that sentiment out, and then I'm going to end up popping this up onto my card along with the florals. So I have a layer of foam tape behind these flowers, and I'm placing them along the left-hand side of my card, carefully pressing that down, and then any excess that's hanging off the side, I'm just going to trim off with my scissors. I made this panel a little bit larger than my finished card because I wanted to be able to have the option of maneuvering those florals to wherever I want on the finished project. So that gives me the choice to be able to lay these out exactly how I want them. So I decided to add a few clear sequins on top of my florals here. The reason I chose them was because I thought they matched really well with the foil dots in the background. So I'm only gluing these onto different parts of the floral arrangement. I'm not adding them to the background because I want to keep the pattern the same as it already is. So I'm just going to leave that on the florals. I cut and scored a card base from some purple cardstock. This is an A2 sized card. And my panel on the right is just slightly smaller than an A2 card. So I'm going to use some Simon Says Stamp Dot Runner to add some adhesive on the right-hand side of that card. And then I can line up my panel along that right side, and it'll leave a nice purple border about 1/4 of an inch wide on the left-hand side of my florals. So that just adds a little bit of a nice embellishment to the card and adds some nice purple color to really pair up nicely with the florals. So the last finishing touch was to add a few embellishments. I pulled out these gem stickers from Honeybee Stamps, which by the way I actually store inside of our Simon Says Stamp clear pockets. They fit beautifully and it helps me keep all these little gem sticker sheets organized. So I really like that. But I put a few of those onto my card, and that's going to complete this beautiful watercolor design with some foiled accents using the Gina K Designs Flowers for You stamp set, as well as a couple of hot foil plates from Simon Says Stamp, the Falling Dots confetti, and also the Love hot foil plate. So I hope today's project has inspired you, from the watercolor resist that we did with the distress inks to the foiling and all the little embellishments in between. I hope that you were inspired and that you will try out some of the ideas that I've shared today. If you would like to learn more about the products that I used in this project, I do have everything linked in the video description as well as over on the blog. So be sure to check out the link if you're watching this on YouTube. And I thank you all so much for tuning in today and watching this video. I will be back very soon with more inspiration for you, but until I see you again, I hope everyone has a very wonderful day. Bye!